All right, today is January 31, 2019. This is the meeting of the Kubernetes Storage Special Interest Group. On the agenda today, we're going to review the planning spreadsheet. And then if there's anything else that you'd like to discuss, please feel free to add it to the agenda. Looks like we don't have anything at the moment. For planning, we have the enhancement deadline this week. It just passed on Tuesday. The enhancement declaration process was slightly changed up this quarter to require a KEP. I think this came as a surprise to some of us. Some of the features didn't end up getting KEPs created in time. And if that is the case, one of the options that we have is to file for an exception. I think Michelle's been reaching out to folks to coordinate that. So if you have a feature here that doesn't have a KEP, it's probably been removed from the milestone. And if that's the case, and we still want it as part of the milestone, please make sure that the KEP exists and is ready to merge and file an exception. So let's go ahead and get started with the status review, unless somebody has a question.
It's Saad, quickly, like I think we don't, if the KEP can be merged till Monday, we don't need to file for exception actually.
I would double check. That was a thought that they were doing, but from their latest email that they sent out to Kubernetes dev, it sounds like we need to file an exception.
No, that was a screw up in communication. But if you see the merged release note that the Jordan merged, and in that it was an oversight to send that email the way it was sent. I mean, that's
then they should have sent a follow-up email. I'm just gonna go by what they say. I think it's better to just file an exception anyway and see, if they end up saying, oh, you don't need to file an exception, then that's fine. But the email they sent yesterday says everyone must file an exception and they will be lenient if the reason why your enhancement was kicked out was due to lack of KEP.
Yep. Looking at the burn down release meeting group, and it looks like folks are filing for exception, and the release team is looking at them on a case-by-case basis and granting them or not granting them.
Okay, I just if you see the SIG release chat room, it's like Justice is saying that the email was bit not exactly accurate, but okay, we can. So in this one it says that by Monday for 2019. So yeah.
I would just, until they send out an email that corrects the previous email, I would just go with what the email says.
Okay, I mean, I think it's fine either way, but
yeah, let's play it safe. I think overall there was a lot of miscommunication for this release. This is going to be feedback for the retrospective for 1.14 definitely. But in the meantime, let's play it safe as much as possible and make sure that none of our features are in jeopardy. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So first off, we have the migration engine for migration of entry volume plugins. David, Chang, or Deep, do any of you want to give an update? Are none of them on the line today? Okay, the status update, as far as I understand, is that part of the migration engine plan, the larger plan, was blocked by waiting for the CSI CRDs. There was a question about how those CRDs would get installed. Today we're using an add-on, but that process is not scalable. We're looking for a more robust solution, but the immediate migration engine plans for alpha for this quarter are not at jeopardy because of that. So as far as I understand, it is still on track. Next feature is inline volumes. So I think the KEP for this has been merged. Vlad, do you want to give an update here?
Yeah, the KEP has been merged on time, so we're looking good there. I got some feedback post-merged from Jordan. I should have that wrapped up today, and I have a PR with his recommendations and suggestions to the KEP, and then try to wrap all that up this week so I can focus on technical implementation.
Cool.
Yep.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Vlad. Next
Sure.
up is block volume support. Ben, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, this one, I did not catch the email that said we needed KEP, and furthermore, I was under the impression that because this was almost in the last one that nothing needed to be done in terms of like process-wise. So that's totally my fault. I've proposed a KEP as of now, or as of last night. Michelle said she was gonna ask you to review it.
Okay, I'll take a look at that as soon as I can.
Hopefully this one can get an exception because, yeah, this is one of those features. It's already a feature that's merged. It's just we want to move it from alpha to beta. Shouldn't make anyone feel weird.
Cool.
I do have one small issue to bring up. Another guy, his name is Dark Owls on Slack. I don't know who that is in real life. Posted a PR to add the raw block support to the host path driver, which is one of the things that needs to be done here. So I was reviewing his patch, and I noticed that the host path driver is stateful, but if it restarts, it loses all of its state. So like you could never use the host path CSI driver in production and expect the right thing to happen. So is that intentionally, like, is it understood that CSI host path driver is only for testing?
Yes.
Or should we be? Okay.
That is the intention, and if that's not clear, we should update the documentation to make that very explicit.
Okay. I was thinking that maybe there was an actual use case someone would want to use it.
I remember, I think Jan made a change a while back to the host path driver to actually have it. So it used to just create a volume out of the container rootfs. I remember Jan made some change to actually create the volume out of like /temp or something. I don't know if that would help in terms of making the host path driver actually more persistent.
Well, I mean, there's a variety of approaches, but like I posted a bunch of code review comments about like this is not idempotent, this is not idempotent, this is not idempotent. Maybe we don't care if it's only for testing, but I was assuming that we would want to have a hardened implementation even in the host path driver.
Yeah, I mean, the intent is for the host path driver to be used for testing. It's supposed to be a simple kind of mock driver, but also have some sort of state. If there are deficiencies in terms of the tests that we're trying to run, then the driver should be improved. If somebody has a use case for production, then we need to like take a step back and talk. That's not
okay. Yeah, I didn't know how much of a hard ass I should be on the review around idempotency issues.
Okay, I mean, I would focus on if it satisfies the test that we want to run. If it does, that's sufficient.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Ben.
So you're going to review my KEP?
I will review your KEP. Who is going to be creating the exception? Is that you, Ben, or?
I don't know what this process is. So yeah, if you want me to file the exception, I just need to know what I need to do. Is it an email?
Yeah, go ahead and file the exception. Take a look at that email that was sent out, I think, to Kubernetes Dev about this. And there's, I think, a burn down email group that you can send the message to. CC me and Michelle. And I will go ahead and +1 it as like, yes, SIG Storage approves this.
So do you need to review the KEP for completeness before I ask for the exception or after?
I think there's like a very small time window for when we can file exceptions. So I think we should file the exception anyway.
Okay,
even
I'll go ahead and do it.
Completed the KEP yet.
All right, thanks, Ben. Next item is out of tree, adding support for online, offline resizing volume exception. So update on this, Saman?
Yeah, so I wrote a cap and saw yesterday, I mean, you left some comments, I addressed all of them. Cap is not yet merged, but so if you can take a look today, then that'll be great.
Okay, I'll take a look. And do we need to file an exception for this as well?
Yeah, I think so, because it's not merged, so.
Yeah. Michelle and I were talking about this, and we were thinking most of this work is going to be out of tree. Is there going to be any work that is part of core Kubernetes?
Yeah, we'll have to call from Cubelet the node expand volume, and so we'll have to.
Right.
I think.
Okay.
So. Yeah.
Okay. So then we definitely need to get this in. Okay.
I guess, Hamad, the online resize is still alpha.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So for CSI resize, should we focus on supporting offline resize first before online?
I think that does not matter mostly, like whether we because online is just like a place where that also calls like volume resizing. So we can focus on that. Like we can like reduce the scope of it, but it's just a small thing actually, because all the online resizing code is separate, and it's just the time and the place from where the actual RPC call will be made for resizing. So it's not all that different. That's what I'm trying to get across, I guess.
Okay, so it sounds like next steps are let's get the cap merged, let's get the exception filed, and then we'll go from there. All right, thanks, Saman. Next up is CSI Driver Lifecycle Management. Any updates on this, Jan?
Jan is probably sick actually. So
sounds good. Next up is Topology moving to beta. I'm not sure if either Deep or Cheng are on the line.
I can give an update on this.
Sure.
So this is also blocked by the CRD install decision. We're gonna discuss this at today's SIG architecture meeting. So SIG architecture is working on a long-term solution for the CRD install, but what I want to discuss today is what short-term solution should we pursue so that we can deliver this release.
Makes sense. Cool. Hopefully we come up with something that allows us to ship this quarter. All right, thanks, Michelle. Next up is secure volumes. Jing, are you on the line? Okay, we'll get an update from Jing next time, hopefully. Scalability testing is the next item, which is also, well, actually, scalability testing is Patrick. Patrick, are you on the line?
I think we haven't started on this yet. I plan to connect Patrick with our scalability team to figure out how to start on this. And okay. I think the other thing is I need to come up with a test plan.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Next up, we have CSI Entry moving the alpha CRDs to beta. So I think we just got an update on that. Basically, this is going to be discussed at SIG Arc if anyone's interested, tune into the SIG architecture meeting today. I think it'll be in a couple hours. Next up is redesigning keys for per node volume attach limits. This is design only, and it is required for the CSI migration. Aman, any updates on this? I think we were looking for an owner last time.
Yeah, so I think you can put me as an owner. So
Okay.
we are working with SIG because the feature already is in beta, it works and everything. So it doesn't need urgent attention, but me, Michelle, and a bunch of guys from SIG scheduling are working on redesigning some of bits to address Tim Hawkins concerns and stuff like that, and take into account topology concerns about volume limits. So we have a call tomorrow, by the way, 1 o'clock, if anybody wants to join. Sorry, 12 o'clock. All right, no, 3 o'clock EST and 12 o'clock PDT.
Okay, cool. So if anyone's interested in finding out more about that design, please reach out to Hemant and he'll add you to that invite.
Thank you.
Next up is Pluggable end-to-end test framework. Michelle, do you happen to have update on that, or Brad?
Yeah, Patrick's making pretty good progress on this. I think we're really close. He just has one PR outstanding.
Awesome.
And I think Matt Wong has also been taking his current PR and like trying it out on a real out of tree repo, and it seems like it's been working well.
Nice, nice. Awesome. Okay. Next item is Kubernetes conformance, establish process, tests, and documentations. Sri, are you on the line?
Yeah, hi. Actually, I talked to Michelle this week, and we identified a few of the tests that we need to promote them. The issue here is we will not be doing it as a conformance suite, but we probably would be doing it as a validation suite to start with. So a set of tests that will be promoted as validation suite, and then eventually at some point in time when the conformance decides on profiles or whatnot, they'll become conformance. Part of the process is to break up table formatted tests to individual tests, so there is a duplication in tests.
Okay, that is great progress. Thank you very much. All right, next up is moving local PV to GA.
I identified all the tasks that need to be done still remaining in the issue. Right now, I think was it Young Chang is helping iron out some last some race conditions and other tricky bits. But he is on the ball here.
Okay.
Cool.
And
So this is local storage, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm planning to look into it like from next week actually. But yeah, if maybe Young Ching could be added as another co-owner.
Is it,
I think Ye. You can put his. I guess his GitHub is CoffYC.
Okay. Next up is cleaning up storage feature gate handling. This was completed, so no update there. Next up is non-recursive volume ownership. Coming up with a design for this. Matt Smith.
Yeah, so the KEP has been submitted. It's not been merged. I've been addressing issues with the submission process. First KEP, so it's been a learning process.
Cool.
And there's also a work in progress PR for that. It's up and available right now. I'll edit the description here afterwards to get you that. But it's currently in flight. I think it's just pending the merging of the KEP, which I believe we may have to file an exception for, if I understand correctly.
Yes. So we definitely need to file an exception.
This is not just a design PR, but this will have actual implementation.
So are we planning to implement it this quarter?
Yep, it's a small design. I don't see why we're not, and Matt already has some code for it.
Okay. So I also don't want to overwhelm the release team with a bunch of exceptions from SIG Storage.
It's okay. They were already overwhelmed.
All right.
A few more won't really.
All right, go for it. Let's do it then. Let's go ahead and address the feedback on the KEP and then file for an exception. The process should be outlined in the email to Kubernetes dev.
Can we change it to design to implementation, Saad?
Yeah. We'll apply for exception. Okay. And then I'm going to clear this out too. All right. Next up is revisiting UIDGID handling with volumes.
This is not started.
Okay.
The design, I was going to try to get this, this. Oh.
Any next steps on this, or do you need context to help on block or anything like that?
Yeah, I need some context on what the issue actually was. It was around, I thought it was one thing, and then someone said it was around the UID handling.
Hamad, you've got a decent understanding of this area, right?
Yeah, I think yeah. So I could link it, but basically the problem is because the volume permissions are only handled by FS group in Kubernetes. So there's a requirement to handle it by additionally allow UID based permissions as well. So that's like the gist of it. And there are like
the high level of it is this FS group solution that we have is very hacky. It requires us to go in and recursively iterate through the entire volume to chown every single file and directory, which has a number of issues, including just the fact that it takes so long. It can take hours to complete on a very large volume. So we need to take a step back and understand what the use case is that we are trying to fulfill and see if there's a better way to handle that. So introducing a way to set UID might be a solution, but we need to take a more holistic look at this.
There's also, I think SIG Node is working on this user namespace thing, and it's also very unclear how that will work with FS Group as it stands today.
And one more thing just to throw in is there, is people want to use secrets and all as SSH keys, and because these keys have FS group, so it naturally has group readable, writable permission. These things cannot be used as SSH keys and stuff like that. So that's another motivation for letting users use UID for permissions rather than just FS groups.
Wasn't there a bug specific with a UID request in it? I thought we had like an issue somewhere.
There might be, but what I want to do is take a step back from like a specific implementation to say, all right, what are all the problems that we're trying to solve here? And what is the best way of solving it? It might be the UID solution is the best answer that we have, but if somebody could kind of evaluate what the current state is and what options we have, that would be awesome.
I think also, so there's like a number of different issues open, all kind of around this area. So I think like if we can collect all those issues into like an umbrella issue, that might help us understand the problem at a higher level.
Okay, so I don't think this task is burnt for this release. I think we can still do the work and just do some of the collaboration on it and not necessarily have anything that we merge, but just come up with.
Yeah, I mean, mostly this is around design. We just need a story.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. All right, cool. Moving on, next item is volume health. We were looking for an owner for this.
Actually, I reached out to Nick.
Mhm.
He has started a draft design spec and has some POC code. So I'm going to review that and then we'll sync up with him. So it will be designed for this quarter, I think.
Okay, that's awesome. So it sounds like Nick is the right owner for this. And the goal here is design. Cool.
Xing, would you be able to be the primary reviewer for that?
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, because originally I was supposed to review it, but I am reviewing too many things. So
Awesome. Thank you, Xing.
No problem.
Okay, next up is CSI Entry post-GA tasks. This includes moving callers to V1, refactoring, cleanup, read-only. We didn't have anyone assigned to this item. I believe this is still unassigned, or?
yeah, this is still unassigned.
Okay. So hopefully once other tasks start wrapping up, we can find folks to pick this up. Next one is CSI out of tree, automating sidecar release and test processes. Patrick has been working on this. Do you have any updates on this, Michelle? Automating sidecar releases.
Yeah, Patrick is working on this. So we have a new CSI release tools repository, and we're gonna put all the common build and release scripts and stuff there, and then have all the sidecar sync to it.
Awesome. Okay, next up is the refactor of the Cubelet driver registration to a reconciliation model. So there's somebody in the community who actually stepped up to work on this. She submitted a PR as a workaround for CSI temporarily and is interested in implementing the larger solution. I will have to dig up that that issue and PR and post it here. Okay. Next up is volume snapshotting. Any updates on this, Xing?
We do have 2 caps. Actually 3. I think Jean added 2, so that's 3. So 2 are about the taints, 1 about execution hook. But I doubted they will get merged by next Monday.
The goal here is to get started on the design so that once all the discussion dies down, hopefully next quarter we're ready to implement.
Okay.
So execution hook. Okay. And this doesn't, well, caps in progress, so that's fine. I think this has started. And maybe we change this to design this quarter.
Okay.
Okay. Next up is CSI Library, moving the Mount library to an external common repo where it can be consumed by other CSI drivers. So any updates on this? Is Travis on the line by any chance?
He is. Well, I don't know if he is. Which task is that?
This is moving the common mount.
Oh, yeah. There's an update on that. He basically started working on this, and I think as of maybe a few days ago, that PR got updated with new code, and the tests are passing. So I think he's ready for review right now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That is excellent progress. Cool.
Yep.
So we'll take a look at that PR.
Yes.
Next up is provisioning capacity reporting for generic topology, which is required for local volume dynamic provisioning. This was a design for this quarter. We didn't have an owner for it. I think we're still looking for an owner.
Yeah, so a number of people have reached out to me and expressed interest in looking at this. So I've added them to my brainstorming document. But I think so far still no one, after reading my document, no one wants to take ownership of it.
Okay, so if anyone's interested, please reach out to Michelle, take a look at the brainstorming doc that she has around this, and then hopefully we can find an owner. So quick summary, the item here is to make Kubernetes aware of the capacity that it has available for local storage, and then use that to actually be able to provision from essentially a pool of storage, dynamically generating volumes instead of having to go in and pre-provision volumes.
That's correct. And
Is there a specific driver associated with that, or is that meant to be reusable by multiple drivers?
So right now the major use case is local volumes. However, the CSI spec is generic enough to work with not just local volumes but any other type of driver. So the challenge here is how can we represent available capacity in a generic way that's not just specific to local volumes. And I think that's the main challenge that this design is trying to work out.
Yeah, but who's asking for that?
Who is asking for?
For a more generic, I mean, I can understand if you're building a driver that is like local provisioning, like this is a problem you have to solve, but you could solve it within your driver. Like, who's asking for a more generic approach?
You're saying why make it more generic than local PV? Sorry, go ahead, Haley.
Yeah, and this would be a useful feature for us because that's a thing that we can do in our driver, but it is kind of clunky. It would be nice if it was something that you didn't have to worry about so much.
And this is a CSI driver for you, Haley?
Yeah, well, the backing storage, like we can say, hey, just put it on this node, or we can say migrate on attach, basically, that's coming out. But it would be nice to say, like, when that binds to this node, go ahead and create a local volume there so that storage is there locally. It would be good to be able to do that.
Could somebody post a link to that document, either in the spreadsheet or in the chat? Thanks.
Yeah, Steve, reach out to me. Right, I don't want to share it globally right now because it's just like sort of brainstorming ideas.
Okay, got it.
So reach out to me and I'll share it with you.
This is Jerry with RStore. I'm not sure I totally understand, but I think that might also be something useful for the AFS CSI implementation for where we locate file servers.
Okay, so maybe it's worth having a larger discussion on this. If there's enough interest, maybe we can set up a 1 hour separate meeting to talk through the use cases. I think Ben raises a valid point of like, what do we really absolutely need? And if it becomes so difficult to move this design forward in a more generic way, maybe it's easier to just unblock local PV rather than come up with a more generic solution. But if there is a very important use case for having it be generic for CSI as well, then we can think through that as
I think it would help to define the requirements and the non-requirements, because that will crystallize what we're trying to do.
Yeah. So
it sounds like lots of people think, yeah, that sounds useful, but why?
Right. Okay. I don't think this is super critical for this quarter. Michelle, I know you've got a lot on your plate, so I don't think we need to pick this up for this quarter. Maybe
I'm not really going to have time to drive this.
Yeah.
So I don't know. If someone else is interested in driving this, then that would be great.
If not, we'll keep punting it to next quarter. Okay, next up is Subpath expansion. Kev, are you on the line? Kev Taylor.
It's probably not, but I've been reviewing the PR and it is very close to being merged. So this is on track.
Awesome, thanks, Michelle. Post GA entry topology.
I don't think there's an owner for this.
Yep.
So it might just be punted.
Okay. So I think the next few items are all like that. CSI out of tree NFS driver, move the NFS driver to a separate repo, move the Iscuzzy driver to a separate repo. At least for the Iscuzzy driver, we had somebody sign up. Is this person available to give an update?
Yeah, hi Saad. My name is Pratik. So I didn't start it this week. I'm planning to start in this week.
Planning to start this week. Okay, cool. And if you need any help, do you know who the right contacts are?
Basically, I just talk to Michelle sometimes, and then
Cool. All right, sounds good. And Michelle can probably add you to the CSI meeting because this is very relevant to CSI and good to track in that meeting as well. All right, thank you, Pratik. So we're looking for owners there. Michelle, I put you as a reviewer for this preliminarily until we can find someone else. This is the Iscuzzy driver movement.
Okay. I don't know anything about Iscuzzy, but okay.
Yeah. Well, is anybody on this call more familiar with Iscuzzy and willing to help review this? Right now, it's literally just moving the code, so whatever we have, but ideally, we also want to iterate on it and improve it. Okay, so for now, the goal is just to move the code.
We can probably add Jan there, but he's sick. So.
Put me on there.
Is that John?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, John, I'm just going to hand it to you. I hope I did not slaughter your name. I probably did.
I think you got it right. I can't see it, so.
Okay. All right. Next one is moving the Fibre channel driver to a separate repo. Methusen and Matt Wong were working on this. Methusen had a PR out that needed review. Methusen, is this still the case?
Yeah. Well, I just submitted a CAP, and the PR is still a work in progress. I updated to CSI 1.0 and cleaning it up.
Cool. No CAP needed for this because this is all external to Kubernetes.
Oh, okay.
So feel free to just resolve that or close it out and say this is not necessary.
Okay.
And then when the PR is ready to go, feel free to ping the folks here, and hopefully Matt Wong can help review as well. So I'm just going to delete that because it's not necessary. Moving online resizing to beta. So Matt and Hemant, status of this?
Matthew moved the existing feature, the design from old community repo to CAP yesterday. It needs to be merged. It also has to be like go through the exception process. And we have at least one item worth discussing still. So whether we want to make it default, or as me and Michelle and a couple of guys were talking at KubeCon, or whether it should be opt-in, like via storage class parameter. So yeah, that's an kind of an open item, but the
Okay.
CAP has that's
Do
the
you think that's going to be able to be resolved in time? I know the release team is hunting anything that looks like it's even slightly controversial.
The code has been written for moving it to beta actually. So the only thing is that one has to be resolved, and it's like up to us if we can amend the CAP after merging. That'll be one thing to do. Otherwise, we'll have to resolve it by tomorrow.
Okay.
Like this one.
I think the sooner we can close on that, the better. It'll cause less issues. But okay, sounds good. We'll keep an eye on it. Next up is auditing CSI PVC code for issues related to number 72347. We had nobody assigned to this work. It was a serious blocker bug found in local PVs that we wanted to do a broader security audit of. We were looking for an owner. I believe, Michelle, this is still something that we're looking for an owner for.
Audit.
We looked at like at least the entry volume plugins, and
this is for local volumes. Yeah, I think yeah, I put this as one of the items that we need to do before local volumes goes GA.
Okay.
So I will see if Ye Cheng can help look at this.
That's Coffee C.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Michelle. And then finally, we have volume expansion for stateful sets. Any update on this one, Hemant?
yeah, so currently it is blocked on the idea that like it assumes that all resizing will be online, and that's a bit of a problem because that doesn't work always. So the author of the design has not got back to us, so I don't know what to do. And it could be solved, but I think we need some feedback from the author to make it like yeah, to make it configurable. But
So it might be that this might slip from this quarter, but that's okay. This is one of the reach features that we had, so.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for the update. That is all that I have for the 1.14 planning spreadsheet. Looks like there are no PRs that need to be reviewed for this and no design reviews. Last item here is from Gary. Jerry. Vault Linux Storage and File System Conference. Do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, I don't know if first I was just going to say if anybody's going to be there, let me know because I'm going to be there. It's in Boston. In theory, I had met with Michelle over a year ago, and she gave me some pointers, and we had a Flex Driver POC for the Andrew File System, AFS. I then left the company, and I'm just back at the company and haven't really looked at Kubernetes at all in the last year. But in theory, I'm going to have a CSI driver to show at Vault, and then shortly after that, the HEPIC conference, the High Energy Physics Conference. And I'm struggling a little bit. If anybody can spare some time to help out, that'd be great. What we want to be able to do is say something like, please schedule this pod on a node or rack or cluster that has the data local. But I'm not sure quite how to do that. I know it's in your design, but. struggling on how to pass the information around.
Sorry, so specifically for your CSI driver, you're looking to pass around what kind of information?
I'd like to say I would like to schedule pass along an AFS cell and volume ID.
Okay.
And then have my driver help the scheduler schedule it on a pod that has a file server either on that node or on the rack or on that site.
Okay. That makes sense.
I know that's topology aware,
yeah,
stuff, but I'm not sure where to pass that information around.
So in general, the way that topology works for CSI is a two-step process. One is when the plugin is registered, the driver is registered with Cubelet. It basically gives Cubelet a set of labels to apply to that node. So if at that point you have some way to discover that, yeah, the components that you're looking for are available on this node, you can set some labels to say, you know, this is a schedulable node for your CSI driver. The challenge, though, is it'll still require a user to set up some sort of affinity on their pod to basically use that. We have no way for the scheduler to say, I know that this driver is currently only available on these nodes and not on these nodes. It requires user intervention to complete the loop. So I think
the
that's
user doesn't necessarily know what node it's on.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's per volume, not per file system. So like we may have 10 file servers running in the cluster, but only some of them have the data.
Oh, interesting. That's another level of requirements. Okay, so
right.
The feature that
so we want to be able to say, schedule me anywhere. It'll just be flow. Schedule me on a pod that's network near the file server. Or actually, we could do something even wackier. We could say, schedule me anywhere that has room for it, and in the background, backfill the data. And when it's done, switch over from remote to local, local in the network local setting.
So this sounds like, currently this sounds like a preference kind of thing. So it's not a hard requirement that you get scheduled to these specific nodes, but it's a nice to have. And
no, for some applications, it's a requirement. It's a hard requirement for performance reasons.
But is it defined at an application layer or a volume layer? The hard requirement versus soft requirement.
Could be either. I'm not 100% sure yet. I'm still talking to my customers.
So Saad and Michelle, I'm working on a project that's related to machine learning pipelines, and data locality of stages in the pipeline come into issue. And it's a similar requirement as to saying that this future pipeline pod should only be on this node because it requires data that was cached from a previous system.
So hard requirements are supported today with the topology feature. What we don't have today is soft requirements in terms of being able to prefer but not require specific nodes.
And the hard requirement is put in the pod or in definition or the volume?
It's in the volume definition.
So in your case, when you provision a volume, do you support dynamic provisioning?
Absolutely.
Okay, so when you
these will either be like dynamic volumes for like scratch data for a computation that we want to be able to persist in case the process dies, as well as static data that actually exists, read-only data. For example, like in machine learning pipeline.
Okay, so I guess in your storage class parameters, you specify what type it is. And then how do you determine which basically node that it gets provisioned on?
I talk to my file servers and I query which file servers have that volume of data already local to them.
So your
and
driver
then I use that
basically,
information.
got it. Your driver on the fly figures out where the best location is. It provisions a volume, but there is basically data gravity, meaning once you're provisioned on this node, you have to stay on that node.
Or well, unless something changes in the background, like that, if that node dies, it'll go. I want to go someplace else.
Okay. So I think
we may say we may want to move it because we have a better way to balance our storage, for example.
So
we can move volumes in the we can access volumes in flight, data in flight.
So assuming you don't move the volumes around, assuming that they are sticky to a given node once they're provisioned, it should be this use case is supported by the existing topology feature. So somehow, some way, you need to basically label every node when the node is registered with your CSI driver, which is the get call in CSI. That's going to generate a bunch of labels on your node object. And then when you dynamically provision, you don't have to specify any new parameters because your provisioner automatically takes care of figuring out where to provision. But once the volume is provisioned, your CSI driver should return the topology fields on that volume to say that it is sticky to whichever node, node foo. And then the scheduler automatically says, oh, I know that this volume is only accessible from node foo, and it can make the appropriate pod scheduling decisions. So the assumption here, of course, is that the volume doesn't change which node it gravitates towards after it's been provisioned. If that's a requirement, then that's something that's not supported yet.
So for example, if I want to do something like schedule, say I want to run a job, the data is not even in the Kubernetes cluster. It's in my file system far, far away. We have a global namespace. And I say, I want to provision this pod, but I don't want it to be scheduled until that volume has been migrated into the cluster so that I can locally access it. We find some node that it's a good place to put that data. And then we want to say, now run that job on that specific data.
Got it. So basically, you're going to create the PV object even before you know which node it's going to gravitate towards.
Right.
And then if you happen to have a pod scheduled to the wrong node, it's not going to be accessible, or it's going to be slower?
It shouldn't be scheduled until the data is available.
Okay.
Until the data has migrated into the cluster.
I mean, you might be able to do that if you delay provisioning, right? You can delay provisioning so that the scheduler can tell your driver which node it's chosen, and then when you provision the volume, you can go migrate the data at the same time. So then once the data is migrated, then the PV object actually gets created.
But that may not work. I mean, it may choose a node that doesn't have enough storage in my storage space.
Yeah, I think he's looking for the reverse. He wants to have the storage system select a node to provision the volume on, but not at provision time, at some time after provision.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, in that case,
I want to basically bias. What I'd love to do is say, I see a request for this data set, and I somehow indicate to the scheduler, these are the preferred pods. Scheduler on one of these, or this one, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So
but I make the decision. I have to be participant in that decision because it has to do with my storage capability.
So it sounds like you want both delayed and immediate binding.
Well, I don't need immediate binding. I guess I don't understand what you mean by immediate binding.
So you want to provision a volume before it's available on a given node. You want to be able to make the decision of which node it's going to be available on at a later time after provisioning.
I could do it.
So if you could somehow...
No, I think you can, because you don't want the pod to actually be scheduled until the volume's ready. So the volume's ready could be indicated by the presence of a persistent volume object.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the way I was thinking about
that
doing
is
it,
delayed. That's the delayed binding.
Got it. Like theoretically, if I could create a volume claim that says this is the data set I want, and I won't have my CSI driver create that volume until I'm ready.
Yes, that would work. That would work. So then you could basically block your provisioning until you are able to make that determination of which node it's going to belong to, and then when the PV object is created, you return the information about which node it's sticky to.
Yep. Yes, but I don't see how to attach that data to a PVC.
I mean,
Unless
once
I
you have
create
a
a
PV
storage class for
representing
each one.
it, the PV is automatically going to get bound to the PVC. So basically what you're doing is you're delaying your provisioning. So a provision request comes in, a create volume request, and you're going to hold off on completing that request until you are able to make a determination about where it should be placed, which node. And then once you have that information, you complete the request. And as part of the response for the request, you say, I have a new volume, the name is this. Oh, also it has these topology labels, which are, it belongs to node foo.
Yep. And where do I specify? If let's say my data set is, this experiment's data volume, where do I specify that? In the PVC or in the
storage
pod?
class. So in your storage class.
So I would have one storage class for every data set, you're saying?
Yes.
Ah, okay. I was thinking that, but it just felt like it felt wrong. So I can have lots and lots and lots of storage classes.
Yep.
Thank you.
So you can have lots and lots of storage classes. There has been a request to allow us to change storage class parameters per persistent volume claim. We've been very hesitant to do that because it causes the PVC object it causes us to introduce implementation details for a storage system into the PVC object. And the PVC object is supposed to be portable. So right now, the best way to do it is through the storage class.
Right. So I just had, as long as I pre-create a storage class corresponding to that data set and whatever other requirements I need.
Yep.
Then that's it. And okay, cool. And administrators create storage classes or users? Administrators.
Administrators create storage classes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. I realize this is remedial stuff, but I like I said, I haven't looked at this in a year. So.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm glad that the answer I was thinking is actually the right one. It just felt bad.
Yes.
Thank you so much,
Saad,
everyone.
I know we are almost out of time, so I don't know if you want to take another kind of related question, or we can talk about it later.
I actually need to run, so let's save it for next time. Do you want to add it to the agenda for the next next meeting?
I'll do that. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, we'll call it a day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.